Friends, we've hit the top of the hour, so I'm going to go live at YouTube. And I want to welcome you to our event again this evening. I've lost track of the numbers. I know that Eric restarted numbering with 2021 because he lost track of them too. We have been doing this an awful lot. I'm looking forward to the days when we won't have to do this monthly. But in the meantime, we're delighted you're here. My name is Stephen Fetter, and I'm sorry I missed this gathering last month, but delighted to be back with you and pleased to be hosting once again. Welcome to those of you who are here on Zoom with us. Welcome to those of you who are watching on YouTube. We've got lots of room in the Zoom room, so if you would like to come into Zoom, then you'll have access to the chat in real time. Although I am watching the chat over on another monitor from YouTube, so if you're typing there, I will get to you. I can't guarantee I'll get to you as quickly as I will get to the chat that's here. And once again, I will gather the questions that come in and kind of try to weed them out from the chit chat that goes back and forth. So that each time Eric and his team stop, I have new questions to pose. So as we go along, if you've got questions, thoughts, concerns, add them to the chat, and understand that I'm trying to curate them under topics. So I may not pose them in the order they come in, but I will certainly get to them. We're asking you to keep your mics off tonight, if you please. It's important to, we've got 111 on the line already. We could go significantly higher than that. And if we leave the mics open, even one or two mics, and then the dog starts barking and the siren goes by and is distracting for us all. So if you can help us that way, that'd be great. Eric, over to you.
Okay, well, I'll start things off as we like to do, just with a land acknowledgement. And tonight we collectively participate from the traditional territory of many nations across the country. But here in Toronto, it's the traditional territory, again, of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples that is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Toronto also acknowledges that it's covered by Treaty 13 signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. So if we just take a moment to recognize where you are, you can put it in the chat box if you like, but just to always remember that we're all stewards of the land, but we weren't here first. So I always have the creed. I'm not going to say any more other than I consider this to still to be the operating mission statement of the church and our work. This particular webinar, I think it's the 17th, we're going to kick it off with a bit of a just in terms of what we'll be covering today. We'll be talking about the new tools that are very imminent, as in right this past week or in the past little while, TeamPay and Church Hub. Then we'll go through the various year-end related things, statistics, the PD27, any last questions with regard to filings and year-end CRA related activity. We'll have an update on electronic payments and receipts. We've all learned to get better at that. Again, you'll see the various things here. The one thing we won't be covering, although it will be in the slide package should you choose to access it at United in Learning, there's about 20 slides that cover how to do a CEWS or a wage subsidy and all the aspects of that, plus other sort of standard answers to lots of treasurer questions. Rather than repeat them during the segment itself, we're going to try to stay really focused on the most current news, but those slides are there for you should you choose to access them. So we'll start off with first a commercial. We don't do all this treasurer work, which by the way is funded by assessment in large measure. We don't do it just to have fun administering. In fact, it's not always fun. The real reason we do it is the mission of the church. And so this is a brief infomercial commercial for the new materials that are out there to promote stewardship in your local church, and we hope for the broader work of the church. So there's readings, there's videos. There's a major push to have more video type materials available to you that are applicable throughout the year, as opposed to just having the old style booklet that we used to have for minutes in mission. But wait, there's more. It's going to be weekly news stories, and you can choose to subscribe to them or find someone who is. It doesn't always have to be you, but for the folks in your church that are involved in stewardship, we have to keep saying thank you and helping folks understand that mission and service is the lifeblood of the church. Wait, there's more. Again, someone, hopefully you or someone in your congregation or pastoral charge, should have been seeing these materials in your mailbox now on the Call to Be the Church program. Again, it's a lot of useful ideas and ways. You have to decide what works in your context, but our philanthropy team is trying to be of service every way they can. And to say, again, for any questions you have, we've got an email address here, both for stewardship and stewardship best practices. And I can vouch for this. This is how I got involved as a treasurer over 20 years ago, was trying to learn more about how to support stewardship in my own church. So that's the infomercial. I want to talk just a little bit about how the average treasurer world has changed. And most of the folks on this webinar right now, the names I recognize, many of you are early adopters. You were more likely doing some of this stuff. But it's important to realize that the whole online world was completely optional a year ago. There were lots and lots of folks who didn't have to do it at all. No, I'm not going to say, to have a My Business account 12 months from tonight was not the norm. And frankly, our tools were functional, but at least old and rusty. And there's been a lot of systems and IT work to improve on those. And frankly, what we also learned is all kinds of little ways that, in my opinion, we were penny wise and pound foolish, using ADP partially and doing some other things on the side, various, not being attentive to the alignment of our charitable numbers and our payroll numbers and so on, all kinds of, minor irritants that frankly were biting us on the butt over the last 12 months when COVID hit and the various federal subsidies we needed to respond to. So today, ideally every treasurer, whether you like it or not, is online or should be. And you should have at least 3 online accounts as we go through this year that you have backed up, and Clyde will talk a little bit about that. Is it more change than we wanted? It was for me. But the tools are better, and frankly, there's more collective support. I'm building off your ideas, and we're learning from each other, and hopefully getting better documentation. So it's been quite the ride for the last 12 months. Just a comment on costs. It's a tough time to be a treasurer. If costs are going up and revenues are strained, that's not, just remember that you're the messenger. You keep track of that stuff, but that's not on you. But we are seeing, the regular cost of living type inflation. We're seeing benefit costs increasing. We're seeing insurance premiums increasing in a way they haven't in a long, long time. And next year, we're scheduled to see some assessment increases for those of you who chose a freeze option in transition. So I'm hoping that some of these system tools at least help, if nothing else, reduce the workload, if not the cost, of doing things. So I'd like to turn it over to Angelica for a bit of an update on the Team Pay project, and then we'll roll through with Clyde and I on some other things.
Hello, good evening, everyone. And thank you for having me again this time. So I'm going to give you a little bit of update. By now, I think everyone, all of the pastoral charges, if I can get the next slide, that would be awesome. Phase 1 was the upgrade of Team Pay Live for all of the pastoral charges, and that should have been completed by now. So if you haven't received, and if you're not, please send me a quick email so we can get you up and running. Phase 2, the first part of phase 2 was the 16 pilot congregations that came on board to Team Pay. If I can get the next slide for. Thank you. Phase 2 is a pilot underway, 16 congregations on the change. We've already had 2 training sessions. We have received feedback, and we are incorporating as we go on the new training sessions that we are going to continue to develop. Those who have still some inability to access the reports, please let us know. We have a user guide available on our pastoral charge payroll website that can be easily accessed. Next steps, we continue to build tools and resources for the phase 2, which is going to happen in April. That's the biggest phase that we are going to have in different stages for all of the pastoral charges. We're going to continue to collect the acknowledgement forms. If you haven't yet submitted to ADP, please do so. If you don't know where to find it, you'll find it again on the pastoral charge payroll site, or just send me an email. But my understanding is that ADP will be sending another set of forms for you to complete. At the end of all of this, we want to ensure that all of the churches, entities have an authorized payroll administrator, and obviously the national payroll team to be able to support you as you go through. So please, we need the document, we need the acknowledgement form. Reach out to me or to the team at the United Church so we can support you with that. Next slide. So again, just to reiterate the benefits of being on Team Pay, you're going to have full control of your payroll to view and make any changes you want 24/7. You can do permanent changes, you can do one-time adjustments, you can actually check your records, correct any errors, approve payrolls, view past reports. You no longer have to make phone calls to ADP, no faxing, no more waiting. It's a cloud-based system that is accessible via any desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, whether you are in your backyard or whether you're in your house, on your office.
So Angelica, it's not just Internet Explorer anymore.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Full access, the cloud. We're going to the cloud for sure. Employees are going to have the ability to access their own pay statements and T4s and print them themselves as well. You no longer have to print them for them. And record of employment is going to be done electronically. So you won't have to print it off, type it up, send it off, and mail it. It's going to be online electronic filing. Next slide. And again, this is a repeat. The price increase, but it's well worth it. It won't take place until you're actually full live, that your fees will take effect. So any questions, comments, concerns, please email them to me, put them on the chat. We'll answer as much as we can.
Okay, so I've got a few questions that have come in, not a lot at this point. There was a question around how do you find the pay statements? I think it's been answered in the chat, but can you tell us or show us quickly, Angelica, how to do that, please?
I don't have access to to Team Pay right now, but I do know that you have to go into pay reports, detailed reports, and then to pay statements. I can provide you with the user guide that gives you a step-by-step.
Okay, terrific. And hang on, sorry. Next question. Is there a way to get individual PDFs of pay statements? Or a couple of people are asking about pay statements.
Yes, you can.
Pay statements to employees.
Well, they can actually access it and they can print it, or you can actually turn it into a PDF and send it by email, either or.
A bit of an anxiety here. Liz is saying, does this mean we're all going to have to become payroll experts now? Been having trouble, can't get answers on a few questions, and now I'm going to have full control. Am I going to screw it up? I think she's worried about.
No, we're going to walk you through, and we're going to provide you all the support that you need between ADP and the national team. We're going to create a lot of training tools and user guides to walk you through the different events during your payroll processing.
We'll just keep your number on speed dial, right?
Well, and again, if I could put in a plug for the paperwork, authorizing Angelica's team to help out is a huge thing. I mean, the business model previously was, sit on hold, get if you misunderstood something, then you call for help. Then, Angelica's team can't look at the data and all this kind of stuff. If we can get to where we're all working on it together, that should alleviate a lot of stress. Great. And the other thing is, we don't, it isn't a payroll that changes tons and tons, so we should be able to get pretty comfortable with the core changes.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And Donald's asking, where geographically is our payroll data stored? Is it in the Cayman Islands, or is it in Timbuktu, or here in Canada, or where does it live when it's in the cloud?
Mm-hmm.
Eric?
Well, we're working with it. We're actually working with ADP to have dedicated Canadian servers, as we do with all vendors. But ADP isn't structured that way yet. So they do have servers in the US, for example, and probably some other places. As do all the other payroll providers.
Yeah, they all have servers around the world, whatever country they're working in, but they all meet the standards required for each country.
That's right.
Thank you. Concerned that ADP is not going to issue T4s anymore. Is that something you've said? I've not heard that before.
No, they will continue to issue T4s until full implementation is over. ADP will continue to do that.
Okay. And are we now required to process payroll biweekly, or is ADP going to do it? Do we have to go in and push the button each time?
So this is the advantage, that you're going to actually have the ability to review your payroll every month or every biweekly to ensure that it's correct, and then submit.
So that means that somebody has to actually go and look at it every 2 weeks.
That's right.
Okay, otherwise it won't happen. So that's extra.
The as is, it's changing, and for several reasons. The as is payroll has had some challenges that we've had to deal with. So hence why it is important now that pastoral charges review the reports, review the accuracy of the information, and submit the payrolls.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess a follow-up from somebody else. If this new system means that treasurers are going to have to do more, why is the fee increasing?
Eric?
Well, a couple of things. I'm not sure that treasurers are actually going to have to do more. My experience, it would be the opposite. Clyde, do you want to comment? I think treasurers are actually going to do less. And and again, even the idea of needing to submit, unless you have changes, you're going to just press, just have it on follow-up to press submit once a month or whatever frequency you've chosen. Clyde, do you have any comment on that?
I think it's going to turn out to be less, although we will have to do some activity every month. As one person commented in the training session, they were used to doing a change in January for the increases and forget about it until next January.
Mm.
We can't do that. And that has caused problems with some of the churches that I deal with where they forgot about it and consequently forgot some other things that need to happen
Mm.
during the year. And so I think it's a good thing. It'll take us all of, well, I plan on setting aside half an hour to do 8 churches. And I'm not sure it's going to require that long.
So what you're telling us, though, is that the treasurers are going to be a little more hands-on, but that's going to keep everything clear in their heads all the way through then.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you no longer have to complete forms, right? At the present time, the treasurers are completing the payroll form and then submitting it and ensuring that the ADP obtains it, or if they didn't obtain it, they have to redo it again, or they have to call again. This time around, it's live. You're entering the information on your screen and you're actually looking at what you're entering and ensuring that it's there.
Yeah, you verify it. You get a chance to verify it before you process it. And it will avoid problems like somebody mentioned up the beginning of this tonight, where they said that they put in a one-time only change, or sorry, a permanent change, and it turned out to be one time only. And so it ran wrong with this pay. And that can be prevented.
Okay. So comments on the chat around whether people are on bi-weekly payroll or monthly payroll. And of course, if you're on monthly payroll, the fees are a little less and it's a little less work each time. So how many, if you're going to make a change, how many days before the pay date does the change have to be entered into the system?
How many hours, I think?
That's actually minutes. You have until, if I remember right, Angelique, isn't it 4 o'clock local time?
That's right.
And so you, as long as you push the button to say process for 4 o'clock local time, it'll go through.
And a comment here on the chat that probably it's a good idea to have a backup person in each pastoral charge in case the treasurer is away or sick. But that's something the pastoral charges will have to think about. Those are the questions that have come in on that topic so far. So I'm going to turn things back to you guys, and we'll pick up questions on the next topic.
Okay, so I just want to, I've done this once or twice before, but I'm going to keep doing it because some of the hardest working people I know are supporting your payroll efforts. Just a tremendous job from Angelica and her team. They literally are, even though we may not yet fully appreciate it, they are literally helping us leapfrog into the future. So thank you again, the whole team, and Angelica, your leadership.
Thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Church Hub. I don't know if folks have the ability to put up their hand, and if Steve can tell me how many people have put up their hand, but and if, we don't need to add that if they can't do it right now. But how many people have created an account on Church Hub?
Okay, so let me tell you, if you
there they go
over the Zoom screen and open the participant menu, then at the bottom here you'll have a chance to put up your hand.
There we go. So anyway, the reason I asked is I would hope that this group would be the early adopters, and I'm actually quite convinced that's going to turn out to be the case. We've sent out the invitation to all treasurers. We've gotten the usual, some bounce back email and various things. But just to say that Church Hub is a huge leap forward. Again, it'll work on any device. It's set up to dramatically change and refine how we do church activities. And if we do it right, it'll be faster, better, and cheaper. If we don't, it's like anything else with data, garbage in, garbage out. So if you haven't gone in to look at it, you should have. Everyone on this call should have gotten their invitation. The only nuance, for treasurers, I think it's going to be really pretty easy. I know there's, I think over 300 have already signed in, and I would hope that all of you do. But here's what it looks like. And with thanks to Foothills Pastoral Charge, because I'm using a real address here, if nothing else. The key, this is all intuitive stuff. You click on where you want to go, works on any device, all those kinds of things. It originally started, the first use of this was for literally ministers and congregations who are in search of a call to work. We added church administrators a while ago, and the treasurer invite is out there now. You can, as you can see, these various buttons, the ones that I'm going to speak to tonight are, your community of faith profile is more for the search process, but annual statistics, your annual assessment, very important. The officers and roles, because all those complaints you have, all it takes is for one person to forget that of a local change, either not to tell us or for us to screw it up if you have told us. So what we're looking to do is, establish where we have the most current information all the time. Now, the onus is on you folks to update it, but it's going to be in your best interest if you want to, get updates on anything we do. This way we make sure. So you can see here the officers and roles, the annual statistics. The annual statistics is available either to the church administrator, if there is one, or the treasurer. And I know of several who've already been using it. So so far so good, but the whole idea is to have online portals for the type of work we're going to need to do. COVID probably moved us along pretty fast on this too, because any of us could have resisted this before, but now we don't even want to sign, do 2 signatures on checks if we have to keep visiting people to do it, right? So, Church Hub for Treasurers. We've tried to get out to all treasurers. If we missed you, send an email to me or to Susan Jackson, S. Jackson at United Church, just to make sure that we got you. There is help desk availability, but as a practical matter, again, this is an early adopter crowd. It's pretty straightforward. And as I say, hundreds of people have already done it, and we have not we've had hardly any calls for help. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Want to stress the garbage in, garbage out. If we don't use it, it'll be tougher for us to communicate with each other. Ideally, I'd like this to be where the regions go to have your most current contact information. I'd like it to be where we go to be able to make sure that we're reaching the right people, and even for your own records, just to know who's in charge and of what.
Okay, Eric, I'm
Comment
going
on
to
one.
step in for a second here because there's probably a dozen people on the line who said that they haven't got a login, didn't see the invitation, and they're wondering how to do that.
I can tell you why.
Go ahead, Clyde.
Because the ones that I've run into where they haven't got it, it's because they have on the statistical form, they have the church administrator's address for every position, because nobody wanted to give away their personal email address.
So the invitation may have gone to the church.
Yeah. So here's the thing: you can either try to chase it down there, or if you are going to want to be recorded there as the treasurer for the purpose of Church Hub, send me an email. I've got news for you. I'm going to be forwarding them as fast as I get them, but send me an email and we'll take care of it.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. Okay.
So on the subject of statistics, again, I would like my perfect world, which I'm allowed to think like that, is where all of us do our reports online. The whole Blue Forms thing, we'll try to streamline it even more. But if we can do it online, that means less administration. It means you see your results right away. You can update them. All the normal things, as opposed to snail mail, data entry errors, and all the things we just talked about with ADP when you're filling out forms but don't have control. So just a few things. The federal grant revenue needs to be reported as revenue, but it won't affect your assessment. We're pulling that out. And a reminder that we've had this question a number of times to calculate your weekly attendance for 2020. Let's face it, it's going to have a giant asterisk beside it. You probably weren't even open in the months, or at least we weren't in Toronto, open in the normal months where we measure attendance. So we're saying use the number that you have for any in-person and the online counts. I've been asked whether we should use any kind of assumption for the fact that there might be more than one person watching at home from a screen. Life is too short. Just you typically will know how many users were on. Yeah, just use that number. And as I've noted before, it's going to be a asterisk year on a whole host of levels. Okay, so we've already stopped for a bunch of questions, but Steve, is there anything there before I move into the more technical stuff like the PD27 and T4s and various things?
Sure. The stuff that's coming in really is more about enrolling in Church Hub than anything else. A number of people saying our office administrator already has a Church Hub account. Do we need a separate one for the treasurer? Do they see separate things? Do we need more than one for each church? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
It depends on the circumstance. If you have an office administrator, first of all, who isn't the treasurer, then it's a good idea to have both accounts. One of the questions I got today was, I'm the treasurer. Can I fill in the statistics report, or do I need to ask the office to do it? And I said, you can go either way. That particular function is applicable to both. But the whole idea from a security point of view is to have different views depending on what your role is. Okay. So I honestly can't say the exact distinctions or if there are any, because in a small setting, a treasurer is the office administrator.
Oh yeah, you've answered most of those questions that come in and then one after the other. From Susan is asking, do the annual statistics have to be entered all in one sitting, or can you do some and then come back?
No, I think there's provision to save them, and there always has been even on the old online tool. I used to go in repeatedly to do that.
The advantage of having 2 or 3 different people signed up to Hub is they can each do their own part of the statistics.
There's a couple of early questions that came in on statistics but I think they're really going to cover them. They're talking about the government grants and stuff, which I think you're going to get into next.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that in a fair bit of detail. So
then I think we'll just turn it back to you, and I think we've covered the ones that we need to cover now.
So I'm still saying finally, because I said finally the last time we met, and then it took a little longer than we thought, and I do apologize for that. I made a bet and I was wrong, but the whole idea was on double and triple checking stuff. Again, the form needs to be completed. It's the way the government tries to reconcile this early subsidy program that's really an orphan in every other respect. It was announced, it got done, and then it was completely replaced by the 45% wage subsidy. So the list is at this website. That's the pastoral charge payroll website, and the main questions I've had, and I made the same mistake myself, so I'm not mocking anyone, is you had to put in the RP number, not the RR number, and you need to have no spaces. And if you were one of the people who subscribed to the ADP program, then your numbers pop. Okay, and I think I showed last time what it looks like, but this time it's actually there. The name of the spreadsheet at that web page is UCC PD27 Consolidated. It is the first attachment at the bottom of a page where we list all the various PDFs and things. It's the very first one. I'll keep moving. The form itself is quite self-explanatory, but I did have a question here. If you're a pastoral charge and don't have charitable status, what do you put? And it seems to me this is where the charity is held by the individual points underneath. As a pastoral charge, I think you're asking for trouble to say you're a charity, even though you're aggregating the data for you're an administrative construct. So I would recommend putting nonprofit organization there.
I would tend to agree with you. The RP is definitely needed, but the if you don't have an RR, it's nonprofit.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, and again, no one's cheating anybody here. You're not even stretching an eligibility requirement. This was a program that was just straight up eligible for everybody, for nonprofits.
Yeah, I would stress doing this online too, because the T4s are being submitted by ADP, the T4s and what would be equivalent of the summary tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the computer's going to start throwing up things saying you're short paid. This is going to prevent that.
Yeah. So again, I've had a few questions, but basically some of you will have two RP numbers with a suffix because of the EI reduction or for some other reason. So you might have, when you say, do you have multiple under this business number, that means do you have suffixes like RP 0001, 002, and so on. Are there other payroll accounts? If you have other separate payroll numbers, that's where you say yes. And then you need to reference, at the national level, for example, we have two RP suffixes. So I would answer that, the first question there. In any case, the form is relatively self-explanatory. The data fields, the one thing that's been confusing, I'll say even to me, Clyde set me straight on this, but you basically put in a line for every pay period, pay cycle that you had between March 18th and June 19th. And in the case of my home church, I guess we're semi-monthly, so that would be about 5 or so, or 6.
There was six of them.
Yeah, and the wage subsidy that you're claiming is 10% on the far right-hand side. Even the amounts that dribbled out over time, we may not have known it at the time, but the wage subsidy you'd be claiming or you're planning to claim would be the 10% of the wages you put in there. So and this is where I'm really going to come to Clyde, the special cases. If you didn't use the ADP process or you didn't do it at all, you can still complete the PD27 now to get a credit coming back your way. The whole reason we did all that stuff in crisis mode back then was cash flow and because we didn't know all the other stuff was coming. So if the values shown are different from what you were expecting, there's a few options. I mean, I think submitting it as is a starting point. Some folks have figured out something where they want to adjust it themselves. And I'm flagging in particular cases where folks had payroll reduced at source for deductions. This is if you were taking your clergy residence deduction. So we've been working with a number of congregations on that front. But just to say that this whole thing was standalone, and the numbers on that spreadsheet should, in fact, do work for the great majority of everyone who participated.
Yeah,
but if you think there's an anomaly, let us know. Eileen has been sorting these out with on Angelica's team, and at this point, I'd be tempted to submit your PD27 and let the CRA process any residual refund if you think there is one.
The CRA is also checking every one of these forms, even the electronically submitted ones. And I have heard that they are calling almost everybody just to verify information. And so don't be surprised if you get a call from the CRA. It's not a spam call. It's if they're talking, best get their number. But the thing you've got to remember when you're looking at the calculations is two things. One is you can claim up to $1,375 for every employee, whether they've got that much in the 10% or not. It's a total amount. And that throws out those numbers a little bit if you think you should be claiming less. So I would go with what the CRA or what the ADP has given us. I am not aware of any that are really grossly out of line.
Okay, so
before you go on to the next topic, then I've got a few questions that have come in. Number of questions who are saying, okay, something's gone wrong in the process and oops, how do we fix it? A lot of people saying T4s are done, but the PD27 information didn't go in. The T4s have been issued before the PD27 was filed. Is this going to be causing problems?
What's going to happen is when they file the T4s tomorrow, I think it's tomorrow, it's the 25th, ADP told us it would be. Mm-hmm. When they file those, then the computer system will be looking at it and saying that you've short paid. Mm. When the PD27 gets in and put into your account, it will match it up and it'll be then whether you're short or over. Okay. And as Eric mentioned already, with the PD27, you can still apply even though you've had nothing up till now. It'll just show an overpayment and that'll be credited onto your next year's account or a check refunded to you. So
a couple of other people are wondering, the spreadsheet that they got off the General Council website was showing pay periods starting March 1 and not March 18. Is this going to cause problems?
What you do is in the start date of the first period, put March 18th.
Okay.
Because that's what they're looking for on that form. And it's worked. Most of them have worked that way.
Okay. Somebody, you mentioned that if you're a pastoral charge and you're not the charitable entity, you should submit as nonprofit. Somebody submitted as registered charity and it's already there. Should she fix it and how?
No.
But just leave it.
Okay. Those are the questions I've seen. There are little bits of very specific things that I think people should probably reach out directly to your help desk for. I think those are the ones that are of interest to a national audience.
Okay.
Yeah, Rose would like to see all those coming in.
Well, you know, if there's something that's specific to a pastoral charge with specific numbers on it, we're not going to take the time into national webinar for that. But the help is available. It's just this is the wrong forum. Contact our help desk at the General Council, and they'll connect you with somebody who can deal with your specific situation.
So, so a couple of distinctions. I think there were questions already about subsidies, and we're going to dive into this in some detail, and Clyde will take us through a chunk of it. On the statistics, we report the CEWS and basically the 75% and the 10% subsidies as grants. And whichever way you do it, we're going to talk about the methods. Just be consistent with whatever your financial statement is. If you're doing it cash or accrual, I don't think anyone's going to care. You want to just be consistent, so anybody looking at it, the answer will be intuitive. And again, this revenue does not count for assessment. For the government, it goes on line 4540. We'll probably say that a few more times, but the CEWS amounts, the 10% wage subsidy, that what I call twos, and that goofy forgivable portion of CEBA, the loan, all go as a total to government grant. The PD27, it isn't a problem. Well, there's going to be all kinds of complexity, but the fact is, if you filed your T4 already, great. If you haven't, it's going to go tomorrow. Get your PD27 in, and hopefully it's a wash, and that's the end of it. Failing that, no one's going to get in trouble. But the worst thing you can do is not file a PD27, unless your answer was 0 and you don't want the 10% subsidy. And normal filing for the other things. So, Clyde, do you want to sort of take over here? The T4, I've had a couple of questions, people questioning these boxes, 57, 58, 59, 60.
Well,
I ain't discussing that.
I can tell you right now that if you depend and use ADP alone, don't worry about what's in those boxes. they've dealt with it. Again, I've checked a number of them and I have found no problems with these boxes, and all payroll companies are using them. These boxes are what income is allocated to those periods, basically. And so we have to watch, and retroactive payments still go into one of those boxes. They don't go retroactive. It's when it was paid. So if you are got a pay period, for instance, and it's, well, I could use a closer example. If you're paying from April 15th to May 8th, let's say, it doesn't go in the first box because payday is probably the 15th of May. So it would go in the second box. It depends on the date of your pay. Most of us will be on the 15th and the last day of the month. So it's fairly clear. Some of us pay half yearly, or half monthly, semi-monthly. That's the 15th. Some of them pay monthly on the 15th, but it's still for the full month of March. Doesn't matter. It's paid on the 15th. So those are the things that you've got to watch for it. This is not questioning payroll as much as it is giving something for the government to look at and say, who claimed CERB? And did they get any income during the period that they claimed for? So it's an audit tool. That's it. We'll move on to the next part here. Yes, the CRA is suggesting accrual based because that's the only basis that can be used for businesses. And let's face it, CRA treats everybody as a business. However, charities do have a choice, and do what you normally do. Do not change your way of doing things. Consistency is important to the process. Consistency will outdo any auditor. If you're doing accrual accounting for period 10, oh, okay, I see what you're going at here. Yes, in period 10 takes you up until the middle of December. And so all periods up to 10, if your accrual, should be showing in your 2020 books. If you haven't received the money because you didn't file it until January, then the money will come in later. So you have to account for it as a receivable. It's, unfortunately to me, it's very straightforward. It's not to everybody. Cash accounting is a lot straighter and cleaner. It's when you actually get the money in your accounts, when you count for it. The CEBA loan is goofy, and as it says, it goes on its own slide, and I don't blame that. It's just the way it goes. And again, we'll mention line 4540 because these are all federal grants, and that's including any of the subsidies that you got, whether it's a rent subsidy or the new rent program. All of that sort of thing is part of it. Canada Helps donations. How did this sneak in here? 4510.
Yeah, let me just jump in. I've had a lot of folks got Canada Helps, and
Yeah.
they're saying, where do I put it? And Canada Helps is another charity. They did the receipting, and so it's another charity that sent you the money.
Yeah, and so you have to track Canada Helps separately because of that. The important thing right now is your deadlines. If you have not done period 6, get her done tonight or tomorrow morning, because tomorrow is the deadline. And you can't even amend them after tomorrow. So get it done and let it fall where it is if you think you had an amendment for one. And T3010, yes, we're back to the normal. It's June 30th for 2020. This is your CEBA loan accounting, and we showed this a couple of times in the past. It is the way the government has said they want it done. And unfortunately, it doesn't make sense to anybody except the government, because it gets the revenue accounted for. And with most places that got CEBA loans, it puts it in a taxable position. And that's why it's being done as early as they can get it. So if you've got it, account for it the way it is here. And I think we'll just leave it at that for the way it has to go. Pastoral charges, this is for reporting your subsidies. If the pastoral charge holds the charitable status, it's no different than a single point charge. Very simple. If, however, one of the points holds the charitable status, or two or three of them do, on their returns, they're going to be looking for some subsidy. However, I'm not convinced that they're going to be looking for subsidies on all of them. They're going to look for the subsidies on the one with the payroll number and where that matched. And that's what's causing the problem. So if you get it under one of your churches and you've got another charge, I would say it should be accounted for under one church and let the other one without accounting for it as a subsidy.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because remember, folks, we took a liberal interpretation for multi-point charges where a pastoral, like we basically said that a pastoral charge, even though it may not have quote unquote revenue of itself that was going to dip, the underlying points did. And we have a basis for that interpretation in the rules for the wage subsidy, but it's still a stretch. Okay. Yeah. And so now when we're reporting back, we may have to explain ourselves in some multi-point situations, or frankly, we may not, because that's going to be small potatoes from a materiality point of view for the government while it's checking stuff.
Yeah, so, and Eric's good at explaining to the CRA, so.
Well, dancing on a pin. Okay, so we're going to just switch gears, Clyde, to just maybe take us through. You've been the attack dog. You've talked to so many different banks around trying to get things easier for us to receive payments and make payments. So maybe you can take us through these next few slides.
Yeah, the pre-authorized payment, if you can do it with your utilities, and I've suggested utilities because just about every one of them have a pre-authorized payment arrangement. And to me, that makes a lot of sense because it saves the cost of a check. It saves the cost of trying to chase around and get signatures and all sorts of things. So if you can do it, I would suggest you go pre-authorized. The national church even has a pre-authorized for your things like your assessment and for M&S payments. And you say for M&S, well, that's a problem because you don't know how much you received. Well, set a lower amount on a monthly basis and pay it on a monthly basis. And at the end of the year, or as you're closing in on the end of the year, you can adjust it so that you end up at the end balancing your books. I think it's a great way if you can do it. Online banking is a problem because the banks do not like giving charities access for online banking. And I'm thinking here more of payments because they're concerned with the security and what's it going to look like if they gave some liberties and that was abused. My strongest suggestion to you is to, if you can, set up a separate account as a single signature and get all of your e-transfers, the Interac e-transfers going into that account, and then even using that account to make some payments out. And when you've got sufficient dollars there that don't appear to be needed, move it over into your operating account. It's just, it makes sense in today's world to do as much as you can electronically. If your accounts are causing you trouble, talk to your local small business account manager at the bank. I have talked to a small business bank officer in every one of the major banks in Canada, and I cannot get any of them that would be willing to put it in writing to me that you can go this way or that way. But talk to them. If by chance you're dealing with the Toronto Dominion and they say you can't do anything, argue with them until they check with head office in Toronto, because there is a way of doing it. And there's paper forms that I unfortunately couldn't dig out in time for tonight, but there are ways of getting through it with signatures. It's a convoluted thing for making payments, but it can be done. But go for it, try it, see what you can get. And if a bank or credit unions tend to be a little simpler, they may end up being willing to give you online banking rights if you talk to them nicely, and then give them some problems. I think that's about all I can offer in that end of it. Electronic access, it's a must. CRA My Business account, whether you're doing it as your own self directly to My Business account or as a representative, there should be 3 people minimum who have access to this account. And I think that just will make life easier in the future if you have to change any of those names. If some treasurer has ever found out how to resign from the post, you might need to replace them on here. And having 2 other names, you'd be in good shape to do it. ADP payroll account, the same thing. You should have 2 or 3 people on it from the church as well as the national office representative. It just makes a lot of sense.
Right. So Clyde, when you're talking about making sense, I can already feel some people cringing out there saying it's awful enough or hard enough to get 1 person. So, but Clyde, I just want to say is absolutely right. 3 is what a prudent business person would do in every instance. But in our circumstance, even 2 is better than 1.
That's right. And even if the other person is there in name only, they can at least sign a form later on if it's needed.
Yeah.
At least you know whose names are listed on the account. And that's been the biggest problem right now in getting anybody signed up for them, is we don't know whose names were on there.
Yeah. And I always have a joke that and the names we do know have passed away and are still on the record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And Service Canada, I don't think I would worry about, quite honestly, because if you should be on ADP, and ADP is going to do be able to trigger an ROE for us, and they will file it electronically.
Mm-hmm. And again, that was all paper and really slow during the crisis last. In fact, they even ran out of forms at one point.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's again another reason to be electronic. So, Steve, how are we doing for questions there? That was a hodgepodge of different bits.
Sure, and most of what's come across in the chat is conversation back and forth and people answering each other's questions, which I think is great.
Great. So I might learn something when I read the chat.
Please keep doing that. Couple of questions around the T3010 reporting. Where do we put the rent subsidy, the CECRA?
It goes under subsidies and grants.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is federal grant, like unless you have an Ontario grant, in which case it goes under the provincial grant number, which is right. One, I don't know what it is off by heart, but it's right above or below the federal line.
It's 1 line higher in number.
So Carrie's saying our auditors did not report the forgivable portion of the CEBA for accounting purposes.
Oh,
therefore,
well.
We have to do it on the T3010 differently than we do it in our own annual report or in our audited financial statements.
I would say keep consistency. Go with your report, because the auditors were told, or the accountants were told, to do it that way. Okay. They haven't. At least stick with them for consistency.
Yeah. No. This is consistency is more important here. I mean, the accountants can have debates and disagreements, but at least if it's the same number, there's only so much hassle you can get into. Don't change it.
Question about the annual statistics form. Betty says the A41 on statistics form mentions only the CEWS. It doesn't mention the TWES. Do we just add the 2 together in that line?
Yeah, it doesn't mention the CERS or the CEB, whatever yeah, all of them. Anything you got.
Anything, any government grant goes onto our statistics form in that one place.
Yeah, if we'd have listed all the initials, we wouldn't have had room on the page for anything else.
Well, and probably it doesn't have much historic interest anyway. We're not going to be comparing to next year or the year after.
Yeah, the one thing that it muddies a little bit is folks who are applying for accessibility grants and local federal or local provincial grants and stuff. But there's a limit to how granular we're going to get.
Yep.
All grants go in that line, period.
Okay, and provincial grants as well?
Yes.
All grants.
Thank you. Can two people have a My Business account for the same church, or does one of them, can only one be the official representative?
I believe that 2 or 3 can have direct access to My Business account.
In my congregation, there are 2 of us. Myself and the treasurer, as it turns out, are both.
Yeah. And
I
neither
ended up doing it because I was the only person on the CRA file that was listed as a trustee who was still alive. So we had to access it through my information, and then we changed it all and put the living trustees in.
did they verify your positions first?
Well, I'm alive.
Okay, you two, break it up.
But yeah, that was interesting. But yes, no, there are 2 of us that get in through the My Business account without any trouble in my congregation.
Yeah.
Those are the questions that I've had coming in, folks. Unless I've missed one, if I have, please put it back in the
We'll keep moving.
chat, and otherwise we'll let Eric and Clyde keep going.
Okay, so just a couple of HRE type things. So Angelica is our expert just on the T2200 and this special $400 or up to $400 credit. Over to you, Angelica.
Yes, very simple. 2 solutions. As an employee, you are now able to claim $400. No strings attached. You just claim it. You don't have to submit any receipts. You don't have to complete a T22 form, nothing of the sort. Should you wish to claim more than $400, then you need to request to your employer to provide you with a T22, but be mindful that you are going to have to provide documentation and verification of your expenses. So 2 simple ways. You either just claim the 400, or if you ask for a T22, then you're going to have to provide a verification. So as an employer, if an employee asks for a T22, provide the T22, and they have to be responsible for providing all of the receipts. But you can also give them the option and letting them know that they can claim up to $400.
And just so you know, up to $400, somebody counted here, our office closed on March 16th, and there are 209 work days through December 31st. And you're supposed to subtract vacations and various things. So an average claim might be in the 300s, depending on what your closures were like.
But most of them can claim 400 and not have to worry about it.
No, you can't claim 400. You claim $2 times the number of days.
$2. Yeah.
So Angelica, I guess you've spoken to this, but the CRA has taken the position that they're not going to nitpick number of days.
They're not going to nitpick even on the numbers. I think that there's just going to do a 400 if you claim it. I've done mine. There's no issues if they haven't said anything. So.
Oh, they haven't said anything yet because they're overwhelmed for a while.
Yeah,
but,
and I don't think they're going to nitpick on $400. I can assure you that.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Okay, so folks, again, this is a repeat slide in case we have any new folks. But any budget you're getting approved this year, and I happen to know, that my own church we're working on that tonight. It's a guessing game what subsidies to budget for this year. When you're going to be open, all those kinds of things. Most 2021 assessments are unchanged from prior year. There's cost of living, there's the other costs we talked about, but it's a fluid budget. So the main advice is just make sure that people understand that we're all dealing with unprecedented uncertainty. The governance things, I've still got a number of questions. So you don't have to, you do need to have an AGM eventually, but you can get your budget approved by the board, and if you're meeting electronically or otherwise. Eventually, there does need to be a congregation meeting to approve financial statements, but who knows, you might be doing 2 or 3 at a time by the time this is over. I'm sorry, I shouldn't joke, but it's entirely possible that you'll be doing 2 years worth. You'll be doing 2019 and 2020, for example. But this is the official ruling, which could be extended depending on how vaccination and COVID goes. So provincial grants, Alberta has a new one for reopening. That there's a number of places that it literally is targeted at faith communities. Some complexity because Alberta thinks that our congregations, all faith communities are incorporated, the same kind of issue, but it seems to be surmountable. I provided a letter of good standing for a number of Alberta applications. The Ontario Small Business Reentry, or whatever it's called, I know of one church that has gotten that grant. They're a significant concert hall, and they applied on that basis. They did not apply as a church per se. So I don't think the Ontario program applies. Anything you find out there, let us know. We're not monitoring provincial legislation.
I'll just put a note in the chat that the deadline for the Alberta faith-based relaunch grant is March 1, and they allowed us to apply through the United Church Canada Act.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think we might have had to provide that letter or somebody to a number of people we have. In any case, there you go, March 1st deadline for Alberta folks. Thank you. I'm putting the CEBA clarification in case the CEBA loan application deadline, I believe, is March 31st. And this is like every main bank has yet to update their forms and stuff and their attestations for what has been on the CEBA site since last June. So you may need to point out this wording to people. I'll even provide it to a letter if there's anybody still out there applying for this thing. Remember that to apply for that loan, you need to have eligible revenues in 46, 10, and 40 lines on your T3010. So it's not for everybody, but this distinction comes up every week for us here in the head office. The emergency loans are still out there. I think almost certainly we're going to continue to have some kind of credit facility on a no interest or low interest basis to help pay for assessments, to help pay for keeping things going through this transition time. So the rules will all change. The extension dates, I don't even remember what they are for sure. But this is the $10,000 loan program currently that has a forgivable element as well if repaid on time. So again, the loan programs, this is just a slide to remind you that there's a fluid element to this. The whole idea is to support congregations. So we don't encourage you trying to get a line of credit at the bank right now. I'd encourage you instead to go for the emergency loan, church loan program, because the paperwork with the banks has been a real pain in the butt. Also want to do a shout out to Edna Cook, who has persisted and persisted and persisted in Nova Scotia to get both her original CEBA loan and her second tranche, the $60,000 loan. She just got it today and sent me an email. And in both cases, she had to educate the bank officers. So what Clyde was saying about persisting and saying, isn't what I'm asking for logical? You just need to do that. So we're really in the home stretch. I've got any further questions, and then I've got some contacts.
Well, and I'm not seeing a lot of questions, which is good. I mean, you guys must be even clearer, more clear than usual.
Okay.
Could Angelica repeat what she said about pilot codes upgrades? I don't remember you talking about that, Angelica. So for
I'm
the
sorry,
people
what
who are
was that?
stupid like me, could you remind us what that was about?
Oh,
I'm sorry, what?
the
Pilot
pilot group
code
upgrade. So these are
Oh,
folks that have are basically running on the new team pay as our test group. Go ahead, Angelica.
yes, so there's 16 congregations who were actually offer their ability to actually engage in the full ADP team upgrade. So they have full access to ADP now, team pay. So we've been testing with them. They are going to be sort of our pilot test project team, and they're going to provide us input in terms of what we need to do for training purposes as we move forward with the bigger groups. So they had the first training session last week, 2 of them, and they're going to have another one coming next week.
Great, thank you. So you were talking about church budgets and how they're kind of a moving target and so on. Is there any kind of boilerplate motion that the board ought to be passing to acknowledge that these are maybe not quite written in stone the way that they normally are, or anything we need to be saying about them as we come to our annual meetings or pass budgets?
A budget should never be carved in stone, in my opinion. It's your best offering around how you think things might go. So I think if you just approve the budget, recognizing the uncertainties related to COVID, that would be plenty.
If
I agree with you there in that it's not a carved in stone. Budgets can be changed. The board has to approve the budget as it is at that point, and then it can be changed later if you've got reason to.
I would say in my congregation, we changed the budget several times last year on the fly.
Sure.
Our treasurer started calling it a financial forecast, which I think really is a budget, but she didn't want to call it a budget.
Well, that's like the government.
There we go. Wondering about the reporting of revenue for the January 2021 wage subsidy application. We've been using the 2019 to 2020 comparison until December. So what happens in January?
Okay, I went online because I had a phone call about this sort of thing earlier tonight. If you're using up to section, I believe it's up to number 10, period 10, they're actually comparing 4 months of revenue of 2019 versus 2020. In period 11, which is the one that goes into January, goes into December, they are comparing November and December only, 2 months. In period 12, they compared December and January, and then period 13, it's January and February. We don't know what's going to happen after 13.
So you're basically telling us read the form and do what it says.
Basically, and this is what I told the people a person I was talking to tonight. We should be using the online calculators. They've got a spreadsheet there that some people prefer. I like the online calculator itself, and it's right there on the screen. You fill in the numbers according to what they ask for, and it does it. And it does it accurately.
Yeah, no, but we are back to what we've been saying now for about 6 months, which is you got to trust the spreadsheet, because there was a time when we didn't, but it's the vehicle now. Remember, in the early days, we didn't even tell CRA what our revenue was.
Yeah.
Okay, so
again, we've got hang on, I got a couple more questions here, Eric. Just a second. Yeah. Hold your horses. If we didn't get our CEWS loan on the first try, should we try again?
I would say it would depend why you were declined, but let me tell you that Edna out in Nova Scotia was declined a lot, and she kept saying, the bank kept saying it was the CRA, and it never was. So now there's a CRA 1-800 number. So I would say yes, but again, you need to meet the eligibility requirements. You need to have 4610 or 4640 revenue reported, on your T3010. In other words, you need to have rental and or sale of goods and services.
Okay. And that was
If
the
you
next
do,
question.
what's the harm? The online stuff for that has gotten way better. They have a service standard where they promise a relatively short number of days to decision. So I think the short answer is go for it, and remember Edna's tenaciousness.
So 46, 10, and 46. What was the other number?
40.
40.
I'm doing this from memory, but I'm pretty sure it's right.
Pretty
Thank
sure
you. That
you're
was a
right.
question Heather asked. Last question. When is the United Church loan supposed to be repaid?
I think it was like September 2022, but I wouldn't worry about that so much. It's whatever your loan says if you have one, and the date is going to be adjusted so that there's a reasonable period anyway. So I'm ducking that one. You can look it up online.
Okay, great. And I lied. I have one other question. It's about T4s coming from ADP. Are they being mailed to the church this year as usual?
Mailed, all of them went out already.
They
Yeah.
did.
Ours has arrived, so in my church. So yes.
Okay.
So those of us going on team pay, that transition happens later. It's this year we get them through the old process.
That's right.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's it for questions. Thank you, guys.
Okay. So again, here I've got the various contact emails for people. Here I have my email and Clyde's. I'm trying to shelter Angelica, but her team is payroll. At payroll, right? At
That's right.
United-church.ca. And response times will vary. My response time on webinar weeks is not as good as the rest of the time. But we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as we can. And email is a great way because we just forward, we share the workload and so on. Now, again, just thank you for what you do for your own church, for our whole church. It's an incredible contribution of time, and it's way bigger in 2020 and 2021 than you were promised when you were recruited. So just want to say that your generosity does matter, to coin our phrase. And that's the presentation deck for tonight. There's literally about 20 slides here with all the CEWS information, the deadlines, the CEBA rules, the attestations. There's all kinds of stuff here that is available if you choose to. If you want it, you can request the slide printout from United in Learning. But we're not going to talk about that tonight.
I just put the link to the United in Learning recordings into the chat. So if you need to go and find it, you'll find that the slide deck is already there waiting for you. I think that draws to a close our program for tonight. So I want to say thank you again to Eric and Clyde and Angelica. This is a huge amount of work you guys put into it, month after month after month. And we are so grateful for your generosity and the ways that you keep us up to date and keep us on track and make sure and answer our same questions over and over and over again as we keep bringing them up. This makes a difference, and the gratitude coming in through the chat is really strong. It's been coming in all night. So many thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
So I'm going to take the leaders off into a private breakout room where they can debrief, and we'll say good night to you folks. Look forward to seeing you again in another month as we gather for the next installment in this never-ending series. Bye for now.